really.
Yeah. And yeah, it's really nice to be here today as we kind of lead into World Wellbeing Week.
So hi, my name's Kate Drake. I'm the Health and Wellbeing Officer for South Downs National Park, and I cover the whole of the National Park, which stretches from Winchester all across to Eastbourne, which is about 100 miles one way. I'm really pleased to be here in this wonderful, beautiful place.
It's so nice, like it's really nice when we get to go out to settings, particularly given the last year, to actually go and visit places. And for us this morning to have been able to go, oh, we're not just going to meet in a room, to come outside, to meet and to kind of walk around, it's just an opportunity that you kind of forget is there a lot of the time, isn't it?
And also that sometimes we're in quite a wild place, which is Stansted Park, which is just outside Havant, but being in any outdoor green space is so beneficial for your health and well-being, and it's sometimes just making that step just to get into these green spaces that can be so helpful. Like personally, I find them really helpful in terms of my own well-being. So I consider us to be very privileged and getting up very early to meet today. But it was so worth it.
It's really nice. I think it's trying to encourage people to use the spaces as well, isn't it? And I think that's something that we find through a lot of the work that we're doing, where we're trying to engage people to speak more proactively about mental health and well-being and engage in the things that kind of help support our well-being. And I think even today, like we walked around, and I think we would maybe describe that as having an impact on our mental health and well-being.
Definitely.
But there's probably a lot of people here that are doing that because it's their routine or it's their hobby or they're walking their dog, and it's not kind of seen as a well-being activity, but it is, and that's supporting it. And it's really important that we encourage kind of more people to recognise the things that could support their well-being as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes it just to come out into a green space, and sometimes to walk is a great thing, to cycle is a great thing, but also just to be. You don't actually have to do anything. You can just come and just stand under a tree, or stand in the grass, or just be in a place and listen and really pay attention, if you can, to those five senses, and just listen and smell and watch, and it can just really help slow things down and calm that central nervous system down a bit, which is great for your well-being.
It is really nice, like you say, just to have those moments, isn't it? And almost to remember. I mean, we've walked around for maybe half an hour now, and just stopping, even now, kind of looking around and seeing all of the greenery, and you're like, oh, you're so caught in kind of the footpath that you're on.
Yeah.
Having those moments, like you say, just to stop and pause and enjoy. We're fortunate with where we are, but if it's a garden or some plants inside, there's ways that you can connect with that kind of outdoor green space at home as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that you've sort of hit the nail on the head in terms of the last year and a half, where it's been a very challenging time for people, and there were times when we couldn't go outside, or for very limited times, but just being able to connect with some living thing, be that an animal or be that a plant in your house or in your flat or wherever you live, was just so beneficial. But also having that opportunity to now come out a little bit more can really sort of expand that feeling of well-being, and improving and supporting the health, mental and physical health of each and every one of us.
I think that's the important, kind of mentioning the physical health side there. That's a really important addition to what we're talking about today as well, isn't it? By using spaces like this to come out and walk or run, if you're more energetic, is kind of really using those spaces and helping support our well-being in a more rounded sense, I guess. It's not just about kind of, as lovely as it is to come and kind of sit and look and maybe take pictures, actually having that opportunity to exercise as well. And like you say, given the last year, there's so much space here, but there's lots of different locations that people can go to as well, aren't there?
Yeah, so another location close to Havant is Queen Elizabeth Country Park, and that's another wild place, and there's lots of trails and paths, and people even go there to have barbecues in designated areas, and there's obviously the blue spaces as well next to the sea, of being able to walk along by the sea, which we mustn't forget either, because they're equally beneficial to our health and well-being. So and also just remembering there are local parks, and being able to just access those local parks is equally so beneficial. Just to get out and shift some of that energy sometimes really helps with boosting mental health and increasing serotonin. It's so powerful and beneficial. I find it hugely beneficial.
And it kind of reminds me of that prompt that World Wellbeing Week can be of. We had the discussions earlier in the year with Mental Health Awareness Week of the importance of outdoors and nature, and it's great when those prompts are there, and I think this is an opportunity to maybe reinforce that message of these spaces are still available. It's warmer, it's nicer outside as well now. Try and use what's in your area.
Yeah, and it's free, which is so hugely beneficial, is that it's free. And I think there's also something around seeing spaces at different times of the year. So obviously Mental Health Awareness Week was back in March, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so that was just as we were coming into spring, and now we're coming into summer, and just seeing the changes in the countryside in that time is just magnificent. So it's being able to sometimes just be attentive and observant to our surroundings, and yeah, to really, this is the prime time, isn't it, to be out, because we're so fortunate at the moment, we're experiencing really lovely weather. So yeah, just to come out, and even today is probably going to be a hot day, but in a place like this there's so much shelter you can sit. It's not hot. I've got a fleece on, in fact, so it's not even that hot.
It's that side, isn't it, of, like you say, utilising the space that's there. And I think often with some of the work and the training that we do, where people sometimes struggle to start those conversations as well, like we've talked about the outside spaces and the walking, and what a great opportunity to have or start some of those conversations with people, maybe where you're kind of walking alongside and that you feel a little bit more open. And I think the fact you're physically moving at the same time as well is a really prime thing for having those conversations. So if you are thinking that you want to kind of start or open a conversation, this could be a really nice way to do it, is kind of invite a friend or a family member to come and have a walk, and while you're doing that, have some of those conversations about some of the things that you might have been struggling with or thinking about.
In a space like this, it's also non-confrontational as well. So like you say, having those conversations or discussions with someone, you're not meeting them face to face, you're walking alongside them, and sometimes it's just easier to have those open conversations or just discussions or dialogues, because you're walking alongside someone instead of facing that individual. And what a great place to be able to do that.
It'd be interesting, kind of, we've talked a little bit about the space that we can see and that we've walked through, just to hear a bit more about some of the other areas of the South Downs National Park and how people can kind of engage with it.
Yeah, so I mean, South Downs National Park is the youngest park or national park in the country, so it's only 10 years old. So we had our 10-year anniversary last year, and it's very new. However, within the landscape, as I've said, it's one of the biggest national parks in the country in terms of the numbers of people that live here, and it's the highest populated park as well. So we've got a lot of people that live in the park, but also the landscapes that you find in South Downs National Park is incredible. So there's a lot of woodland, like here. There's a lot of chalk grassland. So when you go up on the downs, you'll notice that the grass is very, very short, and it sits on chalkland, and that's a really special quality of landscape, where you have high levels of biodiversity. And you've also got heathland, which again is a very unique landscape, where that sits on sort of sand, and you find amazing reptiles in that landscape. And then you've also got areas where you're close to the sea. So if you were to go over further east towards Eastbourne, you're right close to the sea, up by Seven Sisters. So it's very, very diverse. So there's loads of ways that you can access the park, and we do have on our website lots and lots of trails and routes and walk routes that you can go to, mountain biking routes. And I suppose there's also the idea that, you know, whenever you're out in the park or in any green space, it's always ensuring that you keep to the countryside code as well. So making sure that you're in the right place, doing the right thing in terms of where you're cycling and where you're walking. So there's so many places, but where we are, obviously around Havant, we've already spoken about this park, Stansted Park, and the woodland, which is a 1,200 acre woodland, so it's huge, this area.
I feel like we haven't walked that far at
I
all
know,
now.
we've hardly walked anywhere, have we? And then you've got QE, Queen Elizabeth Country Park, and then you've got close by Butser Ancient Museum. So there is actually quite a lot of places that you can access. We also have wheelchair accessible routes. So we have routes called Miles Without Styles, because obviously for people that have got accessibility issues, it can be really difficult and daunting when you come across a stile. Well, basically you can't use them. So we've got certain places within the park where there are no stiles, and they're accessible for people in wheelchairs, people who've got mobility issues, people with pushchairs. So that again, we will give those details out on our website, and you can find them on our website. And they are expanding. We're expanding more and more of those, which again makes the park more accessible. A lot of people say to me, "Well, how do I find out about these places?" Either look on your local area. So if you're living in Havant or Portsmouth or somewhere around there, just have a look on the local authority website, or look on the National Park website, and you will find routes to go to.
It's been really nice to walk around. We're going to kind of continue our walk for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But hopefully if someone's watched this and really wants to come to the space, sees it's really accessible, with World Wellbeing Week, it's an excellent prompt for someone to maybe have their first visit to a national park, to certain green spaces as well. It is a lovely prompt to have there, so we really hope that this kind of encourages people to go and access those spaces, to have a look at some of the different resources as well. And if they do want that additional support with their well-being, obviously our details are going to be included as well, so we'll include those. But thank you so much for coming and showing us around your lovely park.
You're welcome.
That's the thing, isn't it? With lots of I keep thinking, last time